You won't believe how fast this exploded, from whispers around Prince Harry to a full-blown power move shaking the very core of the monarchy. Because what looked like harmless royal drama just collided head-on with the machinery of government, and suddenly the question isn't gossip anymore. It's authority, identity, and whether a prince can walk away and still keep the crown shadow wrapped around his name.
You're in America now, and we don't give a shit about you. You're not our fucking prince. You'll never be king. We hate your wife. Stay at home in your $29 million mansion. All right.
There are growing calls to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles. The New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview, which aired hours after he lost his appeal for taxpayer.
It's not a financial thing. Working royals do not profit. They do not use their names to make money. It's an honour to have an HRH.
Absolutely.
So the fact that she's continued to use this HRH when they've been instructed not to, I think is absolutely infuriating in Buckingham Palace. It was agreed with Queen Elizabeth that they will not use the HRH title. That is a long-standing precedent, and there's good reason for it. Basically, the HRH is only given to working royals and senior members of the royal family.
Oh my God, I can't even. These two, Meghan and Harry, are the worst.
It starts quietly, almost too quietly, like something slipping through the cracks while everyone's distracted. But then the tone shifts. Hard. What people thought was just another headline suddenly feels heavier, colder, more calculated. Because this isn't tabloids spinning stories anymore. This is power stepping in. Real power. The kind that doesn't chase attention, it commands it. And now, inside rooms where decisions echo for decades, one question is circling like a storm that refuses to pass. Does Prince Harry still deserve to carry a title tied to a system he walked away from?
Harry's digging an even bigger hole for himself here.
Well, I think he's dug so deep now, he'll strike water any day now.
I just can't stand her. I just think she's such a phony.
Feel that shift? That's not noise, that's pressure building. Because once something reaches the House of Lords, it stops being opinion and starts becoming possibility. And suddenly, every move Harry has made since stepping back is being re-examined under a harsher light. Not as personal choices, but as pieces of a bigger pattern. A pattern that critics are now stitching together into something far more serious. Something that doesn't just question behavior, but legitimacy itself.
A new poll by Find Out Now has revealed that most of the public is supporting the king in this family feud, ongoing family feud, after Harry's bombshell BBC interview. It follows the Court of Appeal's decision to not overturn the ruling on his security in the UK.
And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because the question isn't simple, it cuts deep. Can someone step away from royal duty, build a global brand, speak freely, profit massively, and still hold on to a title rooted in tradition, service, and silence? That contradiction is no longer sitting quietly. It's being dragged into the spotlight, dissected, debated, and turned into a pressure point that's starting to crack open something much bigger than one man. This is starting to look less like a family issue and more like a structural fault line inside the monarchy itself.
Slaughtered this weekend because there were some business cards in the back of one of her podcasts. She's still using her royal title, HRH, despite our late queen warning her.
And just like that, the stakes shoot up. Because now it's not bloggers or critics talking, it's Parliament stepping in, and that changes everything. What once felt distant suddenly feels immediate, dangerous. Because if this goes forward, it doesn't just strip a title, it rewrites the relationship between Prince Harry and the crown forever. And behind the scenes, the tension is boiling. You can almost hear it in the silence, in the pauses, in the things not being said out loud. That moment right there, it says everything without saying enough. Because anger isn't random here. It's layered. That title isn't just ceremonial, it's currency, influence, access, doors opening in rooms most people will never even see. Remove that, and suddenly the entire equation shifts. Fast. Brutally fast. And here's where the whispers turn sharp, because critics aren't just questioning actions anymore, they're questioning intent. Was the exit from royal life really about freedom, or was it something more strategic, more calculated, more profitable? The momentum doesn't slow down, it multiplies. Petitions start gaining traction, voices get louder, and what once sounded like scattered frustration begins to align into something organized, focused, relentless. Across the UK, from quiet corners to political corridors, corridors, the same sentiment keeps surfacing again and again. Something doesn't add up. And when enough people start feeling that way, it stops being background noise. It becomes pressure, real pressure. And then comes the twist that makes everything heavier, the resurfacing of the Titles Deprivation Act 1917, a law buried in history, dusted off from a time of war and loyalty tests, not something you casually bring into modern conversation, not something you mention unless the situation feels serious, because that law wasn't created for minor disagreements. It was built for moments when the system believed its integrity was at risk. And now, somehow, that same law is being whispered into today's narrative. That's when you realize this isn't just about headlines anymore. This is about precedent, about drawing lines, about deciding what a royal title actually means in a world where visibility, influence, and personal branding blur everything. Critics are sharpening their arguments, pointing at interviews, media deals, public statements, connecting dots that individually might seem harmless, but together, they're painting a picture that's hard to ignore. And the deeper you look, the more uncomfortable it becomes. Because this isn't just about what was said or done, it's about perception. And perception in a system built on symbolism can be everything. To some, Prince Harry is simply telling his story. To others, he's stepping outside the boundaries while still benefiting from them, standing in two worlds at once. And that tension, it's reaching a breaking point. Meanwhile, the silence from the palace isn't calming anything, it's amplifying it. Because in royal history, silence isn't absence, it's strategy, it's distance. It's letting the storm build until it reveals exactly what needs to be revealed. And right now, that silence feels louder than any statement ever could. Something is shifting. You can feel it in the tone, in the questions, in the way this story refuses to settle. Because what started as a personal decision is now brushing against institutional boundaries, and once that happens, there's no easy way back. The system doesn't forget, it recalibrates. And now the question isn't just hanging in the air, it's tightening like a noose around the entire narrative. If the line is finally drawn, what happens next won't just affect the title. It will redefine everything that title ever stood for. And just when it feels like the storm might slow down, it twists, sharper, louder, more unforgiving. Because now this isn't just about one prince anymore, it's about what happens when tradition collides with modern influence and neither side is willing to step back. What the pressure that started as a murmur is now pressing in from every direction. And inside those historic halls, the conversation is no longer hypothetical, it's procedural, structured, and quietly moving forward in ways the public can't fully see yet, but can absolutely feel. Because once something enters that level of discussion, it doesn't disappear, it evolves, it gains weight, and it starts demanding resolution. The accusations are no longer vague either, they're becoming disturbingly specific. Words like title laundering and title trafficking are being thrown into the mix, not as casual insults, but as pointed critiques designed to reshape how people interpret every move Prince Harry has made since stepping away. Think about that for a second. That's not just criticism, that's reframing an entire narrative. It suggests intention where there was once sympathy, strategy where there was once vulnerability. And whether that's fair or not almost doesn't matter anymore, because once a narrative like that sticks, it spreads fast, and it changes how everything is seen, from interviews to documentaries to even the smallest public appearance. And the political angle, that's where things get even more explosive. Because the British royal family has always operated on one unwritten but fiercely protected rule: neutrality. Stay out of politics, stay above it, stay untouched by it. But critics argue that line has been crossed, not subtly, but repeatedly, especially after high-profile appearances and commentary in the United States. And now, lawmakers are asking a question that sounds simple but hits like a hammer. Why is someone holding a British royal title speaking on issues that feel politically charged in another country? That question doesn't just sit there. It echoes. It demands answers. And inside Parliament, it's starting to sound less like curiosity and more like concern. Then comes the economic layer, the one people whisper about but rarely say out loud. The deals, the headlines, the global attention orbiting around the Duke and Duchess branding. Critics are connecting those dots too, suggesting that the royal title isn't just lingering in the background, it's actively fueling visibility, influence, and opportunity. And once that perception locks in, it becomes incredibly difficult to separate identity from advantage. That's where the frustration spikes. Because to traditionalists, a royal title isn't supposed to function like a brand enhancer. It's supposed to represent duty, service, restraint. And when it starts looking like something else entirely, the reaction isn't mild, it's intense, almost defensive, like the system itself is being tested in real time. What makes this even more volatile is how public opinion is shifting underneath it all. Quietly at first, then more more noticeably and now almost unmistakably. Polls, petitions, conversations, they're all starting to lean in a direction that would have seemed unthinkable not too long ago. And the most striking part, it's not just coming from distant observers, it's coming from within the UK itself, even from Sussex, the very place tied to the title in question. That detail alone carries a symbolic weight that's hard to ignore, because when the place that defines the title starts questioning the person who holds it, something deeper is happening, something that feels less like disagreement and more like disconnection. Inside the monarchy, the silence continues, but now it feels deliberate in a different way. King Charles III hasn't stepped forward publicly to defend or dismiss the growing pressure, and that absence is being interpreted in a dozen different ways. Some see it as restraint, others see it as distance, and then there are those who believe it's something more calculated, a decision to let the system handle what has become too complex, too sensitive, too politically charged to address as a purely personal matter. Because if the crown steps in directly, it risks turning this into a family confrontation. But if Parliament moves, that reframes everything as institutional necessity. And then there's Prince William, a figure who isn't speaking loudly, but whose position in all of this feels impossible to ignore. Because for him, this isn't just about a brother, it's about the future of the monarchy itself. Stability, continuity, control. And if the system starts to look inconsistent, if titles can be used in ways that blur lines or challenge expectations, it creates a ripple effect that could stretch far beyond this single situation. That's the fear driving a lot of this momentum. Not just what's happening now, but what it could mean later. And hovering over everything is that old, almost forgotten law, the Titles Deprivation Act 1917. Like a shadow from the past that suddenly feels relevant again. It's not just being mentioned casually, it's being examined, considered, brought back into conversations where it hasn't appeared in generations. And that alone tells you how serious this has become. Because invoking a law like that isn't about making noise, it's about exploring options, real options, the kind that don't just create headlines but create consequences. If this ever crosses the line from discussion to action, the impact wouldn't be subtle. It would be immediate, transformational. The title Duke of Sussex isn't just a name, it's a symbol, a connector, a piece of identity that ties everything together. Remove it, and the entire framework around Prince Harry shifts overnight. The perception changes, the narrative resets, and suddenly the story that has been building for years takes a completely different shape, one that can't be undone or softened once it's set in motion. Supporters push back, of course, arguing that identity isn't something you can strip away with a decision, that personal experience and voice matter more than titles ever could. And that argument resonates with many. But inside political and royal circles, the conversation is moving on a different track, one focused less on emotion and more on structure, precedent, and long-term impact. Because institutions don't react the way individuals do. They calculate, they weigh, they act when they believe the balance has shifted too far. And right now, that balance feels dangerously unstable. Years of interviews, documentaries, statements, and revelations have built up like layers, each one adding pressure, each one shifting perception just a little more. And now, all of it is converging at once. Public opinion, political scrutiny, historical precedent, creating a moment that feels less like a continuation and more like a turning point. The most unsettling part, no one knows exactly where this ends. Because if Parliament decides to move forward, it won't be loud at first. It will be quiet, methodical, discussions behind closed doors, legal frameworks revisited, decisions shaped in rooms the public never sees. And then, suddenly, it will be announced and everything will change in an instant. Until then, the tension just sits there, growing, tightening, refusing to resolve. Because this isn't just a story anymore. It's a question waiting for an answer that could redefine everything people thought they understood about royalty, power, and what happens when someone tries to exist between both worlds without fully belonging to either. And the silence surrounding it, that might be the loudest warning of all that something irreversible is already in motion.